video, I'm going to begin adding details to the mass timber structure. So I'm in sheet A304, and this one includes the columns, beams, and floor and roof systems. In this part, what we'll be doing is adding the building envelope, the exterior walls. What we're going to do is put in a storefront on the lower level here, and then we'll use some CLT panels along with the finish assembly on the second floor. So we'll start off with constructing a storefront around the perimeter of the structure. I'm going to go to level 1. And this is the mass timber structure. I'm going to go to wall. And instead of a curtain wall, this one is going to be a storefront. Okay, so there's a default storefront type in there. I'm going to edit the type. And I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it storefront 2, or perhaps put your initials in there or something, just to identify that it's yours. All right, so I'm going to click on OK. And then I am going to take a look at some of the parameters here, or some of the settings. So right now it's set to rectangular mullion 2.5 by 2.5 by 5. We had uploaded a more detailed one previously. So this is for the vertical mullions. But what I'm going to do for the two border types, these are again the verticals, is I'm going to put none. And same thing here. And I'll explain in a moment why I'm doing that. For the horizontal ones, we'll make them all that 2.5 by 6. And apply and OK. All right, now a couple things that I want to do here. Is it going to let me change this? No. Okay, I want the top constraint to be 2, level 2. And by default, level 1 will be the base constraint. I'm going to raise this up 1 inch, and that will give us a place to add a sort of block to support the bottom, and also a joint for sealant and backer rod. Okay, so this one is going up to 2, but I want to make an offset. I want this to be below the level. So this odd dimension, I'll explain in a moment why we're doing that. That's the top offset, and apply that. Okay, now I do want to change the relationship of this relative to the column line, but I'm going to go ahead and click a point here, and we may need to sort of move it around. Just going to go around the entire structure. It looks like it's defaulting to that. Maybe we'll zoom in and take a look. Escape. And now what I'm going to do is go down to the wall sections. The wall section I want to look at is the mass timber wall section. Okay. Now it didn't place it where I want it, so I'm going to have to go back and make that adjustment. But in terms of the height, it's fine. But what I want this to do is to align with the edge of the slab. So let's just take a measurement here, distance from here to here. So I need to move it in 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go back to level 1. I'm going to click on this and move it 1.5 inches. And I'll go around and do that for all of them. And up here at the top too. And we'll go back and take a look at that section and make sure the relationships are correct. Okay, yeah, so there we have that. Now, while I'm down here, we're going to be using a similar detail or exactly the same detail that we used for the steel structure. So I'm going to go to the steel wall section and come down here, and I'm going to make a window around all of that at the bottom, Control C, and go back to my mass timber storefront detail there. I'll temporarily place it over here, and then I'll make a window and I will move it from that sealant to here. Okay, now we can begin working on the wall assembly that will be from level 2 to level 3. And just to kind of give you some overview of what this detail is going to look like. We terminated the CLT floor system, just, aligning with the column beyond. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend it out a little further, and we will have the CLT wall assembly that's sitting above. It'll be directly above the storefront. So what will happen is from the interior, the column and the beams and girders will all be exposed. Unlike what we did with the steel structure, instead of putting a spandrel panel here, we'll just allow all of the wood to be visible through the glass, so no spandrel panel. All right, so for that wall assembly, first of all, let's go to level 2. Okay. And we're going to begin defining a new wall type. So I'm going to go to wall here, scroll up, and I'm going to use an exterior wall type. Let's go with this first one. Basic wall exterior, and this one starts off with an EIFS on metal stud. We're going to change all of that. Okay, I'm going to make a duplicate, and I'm going to call it exterior followed by CLT and click one. Okay. All right, and then I'll go to edit, and I will begin to make some changes to what we're looking at here. For our finished material, we're actually going to use some aluminum panels. So I'm going to change this thickness to 3/4 of an inch. That's going to be the finish. Then we're going to have an air gap there that is 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to use some furring in that space. I will have an additional layer here. I'm going to get rid of this substrate. I will click on it and delete it. But I'm also going to click here and insert another layer here. This will also be a thermal air layer, and we will look for a rigid insulation material. Okay, let's make the thickness of this 3. Okay. And this layer here, I'm going to move it up. Okay, so we'll have the finish an airspace. So this is going to use the rain screen principle, where we're allowing for moisture to like drop to the bottom of the wall and be evacuated. Now for the structure part, we're going to change this to softwood lumber. Say okay. And we're going to make these 1 3/8. Okay, softwood lumber. Insert, we'll have 3 layers of the same material and thickness. And they will all be 1 3/8 of an inch. Okay, now on the interior side, we are going to have a vapor retarder and this gypsum wall board. So those will stay as they are. And I'm going to click on OK and apply and OK. Okay, now we are ready to place these walls. I'll go ahead and start at the corner like I had done with the curtain wall. And I'll just go all the way around the structure with this CLT paneled wall. So click here, lower left, upper right, lower right, and we'll come back around. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, take a look at it. It's a little hard to understand what's going on because of all those layers that are showing. Let's go back to our section, mass timber wall section. Okay. Now, here's where you're going to need to probably make some adjustments. So I may need to, I can do this singularly, but basically we need to make some adjustments to the location of the base offset and the top offset. So I actually think it will be easier, instead of editing everything that's been placed in there, is to reconstruct the walls with the proper offsets and everything. So I just erased them. You might be able to Control Z to bring it back to where the walls weren't there yet. And I'm going to go back through this process again of creating this basic wall type or inserting this wall. So I want the finish face of the wall. I want to use that one to select my points. For the level 2 offset, I actually want this to drop below. So I'm going to type in -0 feet, 8.375 inches. And the reason is because we want that wall to cover the edge of the floor assembly. Okay, so that's the base offset. The top offset, I'm going to change this to a positive 7.25 inches. And okay, now I'll go ahead and redraw these walls. And I think this will save a little bit of time instead of trying to fix them after they're in there already. Okay, now going to the mass timber wall section. Okay, so you can see this is now aligning, and this wall assembly has been dropped, so it actually is in alignment with the wall or the floor assembly. Okay, and at the top, it's a little bit higher than the level 3 datum so that we can get a gravel stop detail in there. Okay, now what I want to do is bring out the roof and the insulation layer here. So right now it is measuring 5 3/8 of an inch from the column line. And I want to bring it out to 1 foot, 1.5 inches so that it goes this far. So I need to bring it out 8 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to edit the boundary and we'll edit this on that upper level 3, open in view. And I'm just going to go around and move these 8.125 inches. Anything here, move it 1.125 inches. $8.125 and the last one down here, same thing. Check mark, go back to the wall section. Oops. Let's see how that looks. There's an overlap in here, but we're going to fix that momentarily. And then I'm going to also bring the rigid insulation over further. But I'm only going to bring it over 3 5/8. So again, because I need to extend it to fill that gap there, but I don't want it to go all the way to the exterior face. So I'm going to go around here and we'll move these all, move 3.625 inches. Oops, wrong symbol there. Inch symbol all the way around. Check mark, no back, double check our section here. Okay, it's coming in a little bit farther, but we'll be looking at that shortly. Let's do the same thing to this one down here. This will come over all the way to here, so I need to move it over. Should be 8 1/8 also. Edit boundary. This one I'm going to change on level 2. Okay, now this one will take a little bit because we want to move every separate thing. We wrapped around the columns here, so I'll go ahead and make that change. Again, 8.125. I've moved everything out, and I'm going to now hit the check mark and go back to my wall section and see how it looks. Okay, so again, there's an overlap here, but we're going to resolve that with the join tool. Okay, so for the join tool, I'm going to click on the floor and the wall assembly. Okay, so now the floor is extending to here where it should, but one thing I'm going to need to do is bring this down through this sort of topping slab. So that's going to have to be done with perhaps some detail lines. So I'm going to go to annotate, do a region. I'll make it with, I'll start off with these thin lines here. Let's do it as a rectangle from here to here. Let's start from this intersection. So we have something to snap to. And this is not going to be rigid insulation. We want to make this solid white. Okay, and then go back to the rectangle tool, click right there and bring it over here and hit the check mark. Okay, now we want that line to disappear there. So what I'm going to need to do is edit the boundary and then change this top line to invisible. And check mark. Right now I'm going to have to construct these lines lower. Now, I don't know, thin lines, I'm not sure that the medium line, I think that's going to be too thick. I'm going to drop it down to the thin lines. Technically, it would be good to construct a new line type that matches what these are. Okay, so this CTL panel CLT panel is going to drop down and rest on the CLT floor panels. Right, and we'll go up to the top here and make a few revisions to this. This also wants to use the join tool, and I will just pick the two. Okay, so the same thing here. We're going to have some extra lines that need to be drawn. I'll construct one from here to here, and another one on top of this one over there. Okay, now for the detail at the top here on the steel wall section, we have some information that we can cut and paste. So I'm going to go to the steel wall section, and I'm going to go up to the top here. Oh no, it's not the steel one, it's the precast. Let's go to the precast wall section. We'll use a detail that looks like this one. You will need notes, and those at some point will need to come, but you may want to come back and do that later. Okay, so we're now going to the mass timber wall section, and I'm going to paste that in there. I'll just place it over here temporarily, and then I'm going to move it from this point. Let's try that again. Make a window, move from this point here to this point. Okay, so now we have a gravel stop that is covering the top of our aluminum panels here. There's some extra lines that I'm going to take out. We do have some extra line work that's part of the wall assembly that just extended all the way up. And we really want to get rid of those lines. I'm going to try to do a detail line. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I may need to do a region and kind of cover up that. So let's see, filled region solid white, and let's see if I make it with invisible lines. Can we take care of this in one pass? Check mark. Okay, it's not entirely what I wanted to do, but we can then begin to kind of add some additional line work here to kind of complete things. Let's see, if I right click on that, I may be able to make an adjustment to its placement. Okay, the better method would be to click on it and change it to the filled region of rigid insulation so that we have those lines pulling through. All right, we're going to need to bring in a membrane line. So it will be a little bit heavier than this one. So this is done with a medium line type. So I'm just going to add another detail line. This one, I'll make it a little thicker. And we'll bring it down here. Is it going to let me snap to that point? I probably need to adjust the object snaps for that. So with the dimensions here. So what I'm going to do is I just erased it. I'm going to make a line, annotate detail line, and it should snap to the nearest point because that object snap is part of the selection set. Place it right there temporarily. I'm going to bring this line up and then bring it to the end point there. There we go. Okay, so that takes care of the roofing details. As you may recall, this beam is a glulam, and the way it actually is fabricated is it's a series of smaller members that are stacked on top of each other and glued. So we're going to draw the graphic to represent these individual pieces within the beam. So going back to the Revit file, we'll do this as a series of lines. So I'm going to start by creating a detail line down here at the bottom. And I want that to be a medium line, or not a medium, I want it to be thin. And then I'm going to move it up 1.5 inches. Now, the height of these is going to vary depending on the manufacturer, but it would be roughly this size. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to array the line. I'm going to make, I think 13 should work. And then I'm going to tell it that they should all be 1.5 units above each other. Okay, so there we have some kind of representation for the glulam beam. And we will also draw in something that represents the bracket that's used to support the member that frames into it, this one right here. So let me go back to the textbook image. So this is the type of bracket, or they're calling it a steel plate hanger, that would be used. So we'll go ahead and draw that into the Revit file. Okay, how big this is, again, sometimes these can be found and purchased off the shelf. Sometimes these need to be custom made pieces. Let's make this out of thin lines, since we're going to be just looking at it in elevation. I'm going to construct a detail line first. Oops. Let's try it again. We want this to be a vertical line here. And then I'm going to move it over 3 inches. And I'm also going to make another line here. And move that one down 1/2 inch. Okay, so for our bracket, we will make a rectangle there. Now I can delete these 2 construction lines. Okay, we're going to do that again. Apologies there for that. Instead of making it out of single lines, we're going to make it a region. So I'm going to erase those or undo them. Okay, let's do region, filled region, solid white, and let's make it out of a rectangle to make this a little bit faster here. From here to here, check mark. We don't want to see the beam beyond. Okay, now edit boundary. I lost some of my lines here. This one should be thin. This one here should also be thin. Now the others don't matter. Okay, and then up above here, the bracket will kind of, be within the CTL floor area here. So I will construct those out of a hidden line because they won't be visible. So let's do this out of 1/16 1. I'm going to come up here 0.5 inches and come over to that point and then down. So basically what we're showing is that is beyond. And then lastly, we want to indicate some kind of fastener. I'm going to make a circle here at the midpoint. Perhaps what would be, and I'm going to need to change that line type to 1/2 inch here. Click on it, change it to thin line. and then move it up a few inches. Okay. So as you recall, it makes a difference. As you may recall, it requires that you put this fastener towards the bottom. If we put it towards the top, the stresses could cause this member to crack or split. Okay, so now once you have all those lines, what would probably be best is to generate a group out of them. So I'm going to make a window around this. I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to do a detail group, create that group, and this group I'm going to call glulam beam or a girder. Okay, these are the only, we'll only be doing sections in this direction, so it would look similar if we cut a section in the opposite way. And then down here, I'm going to detail group, place a detail group, and let's see here what it's giving us. I don't want that one. I want the one I just created. Go here and look for that glulam beam detail. Place it here temporarily, and then I'm going to move it from this point to this point. Let me do that now. Try it again. From here to here. There we go. Okay, so can copy that into its place. Okay, let's make a copy of these elements for the top. I'm going to make a window around them. I'm going to mirror it, and I'll just look for a line that I can snap to. Is it going to let me do that? No, let's do this one, and then I'll move them into place. Okay, so where's my copy? It's probably somewhere within the wall section here. So let's do this instead. Control C, come up to this part, Control V, place it here. Now what I'll do is I'll mirror it. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try it one more time. Control Z. Mirror, and I'll pick my own points there. Delete this, and then let's move this into position. Okay, now one thing that we're not showing in our graphic here is we need that air and moisture barrier. So I'm going to bring that line type in. I'm going to erase this one. And I'm going to use a line type, detail line, let's see, hidden 1/16-3. And I'll draw it, and then I'll move it over a little bit so it's not directly on top of other lines, and then can be pointed to. Okay, a few more things need to be done to this detail to get it ready. This roof assembly has 3 layers of these laminations, and they're going in different directions. As you can see from this page in the textbook, you know, there are members that are in the short direction and members that are in the long direction. For ours, let's go back to the Revit file. The top one will be in the long direction, as will the bottom one, but the middle one will be in the short direction. So I'm going to make a detail line. I'm going to change this down to thin lines, and I'm going to move this over 3.5 inches. Again, those dimensions will depend on the manufacturer. And then I just need to make an array of those to fill that space. So I've got 6 feet and 1.5 inches. So I just need to do the math to determine how many I would need in that space. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hit the array tool. I think about 22 of these should work. And then I'm going to tell it 3.5 inches. Okay, so they're going to appear there, and they're also going to appear in the laminations of the floor down here, as well as the laminations of the wall planes. Keep in mind that there's always an odd number for those laminations. And try to copy and paste. Gonna let me do that, maybe. Yes. And then I'll copy and paste again and snap to these intersections. Okay. All right, and we're also going to have them in the vertical CLT. So I'll go and create another detail line. At this one, the laminations are going to be on the outside, or the direction, the short direction will be on the outside. I'm going to move this up 3.5 inches. And we then need to array that. I have 12 feet here. So we're going to take 144 and divide it by 3.5. So let's try 41 of these. Array 41 and come up 3.5 inches. Okay, looks like there's one extra that I'll delete. And then the same thing needs to happen in that inner lamination. So I'm going to copy from there to there, and I'll repeat that array. I don't remember how many I've done before. Okay, so I'm going to erase that one. Right, so here we have the wall assembly together, and we just need to address the post bases for the columns. So I am at the base of the column near the storefront here, and what I'm going to do is create a region, solid white with thin lines, and I will, let's see here, let's start at the middle here. So 5 3/8, I'll make it 6 inches this direction, and let's say 0.75 inches here. I'll come back 5.375 inches, and I'll go up, let's say, maybe 9 inches and over 0.75 inches. Oops, somewhere my math is incorrect. Let's check this. Here to here, 6. Here to here. Okay, so I wanted to go 5 5/8. So let's move this over 0.25 inches. There we go. All right, so this dimension here, 5 5/8. And then I'm going to copy this from here to here. Copy this. And you could probably mirror this as well. And then extend this one all the way over. Hit the check mark. Save the project. Okay, so there may be some fasteners, and we just kind of want to sort of suggest that there is some consideration of how this column is going to sit on the slab. It's a good idea that the wood not directly touch the slab. Okay, for the very final part of what we see here. We want to have a pitch that allows for drainage away from the building. We want our rebar in here. We want the crushed gravel, a lot of the same details that you've been drawing on the other details, and you should be able to copy and paste some of that information to this one. So I brought in some reinforcing, and you can see there's some cross section here. And I've also set up some guidelines for constructing the shadow or the gravel. So I'm going to go to annotate and create a region using gravel, thin lines. I'm going to actually make these invisible lines. I'm going to go around and create this area of gravel. With the check mark. Okay, now I have some lines that I can eliminate. I also have generated a few lines that I'm going to use. I'm going to create a region for my earth pattern instead of using the topography. Filled region, this one will be called Earth. Where is it? Maybe I don't have one. I'll need to create one. Okay, so I created this new one, and I can go and construct the region now. If there is, I will edit that boundary to give this maybe a medium line weight. Everything else can be invisible. And then I'm going to delete all my construction lines in here. Okay. And I noticed that this is a little bit on the heavy side, so this is probably an object properties issue. So you're going to go to manage object styles and then scroll down to where floors are, slab edges. Doesn't seem like it's 5. See if we drop it down to 2. There it goes. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to add some flashing above this window. Right now, it would be very vulnerable. Water would come down here and it would kind of spill into the assembly. So let's go to annotate detail line, and I'm going to make this out of medium lines. I'll come up the wall some distance here. And I'm just going to show it as if it's extending out a little bit. Let's take this and let's move it over 0.25 inches. Bring it up. And I think maybe that the lower line didn't get made. So let's add another one here. Okay, so now we have at least some protection there from moisture. Right? And that will do it for the details for this wall section.